so the best teams I've been around have had really good human connection. And I think our guys are really trying to build that by spending a lot of time around each other. The way you see it reflected is they're able to be really honest with each other. And the way they communicate is not so careful. They're pretty blunt with each other, and there's a lot less sensitivity to receiving feedback from teammates. So I think that's where you would see it show up in training camp. But yeah, the way they approach the summer and the relationships that they're building, they deserve all the credit for that.
And then I guess the other side of that is then what about the guys that didn't go?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be things in the off season that prevent everyone from getting together. Lowry and Nurk are over at Eurobasket. I don't think that it's impacted the team. Like, I don't feel a little clique forming or anything like that. I think it's also just kind of the nature of where they are in their career. We have some guys on the team that were relocating here. When you look at Nurk, Kevin Love, Kyle Anderson, like there's some reasons that they maybe wouldn't have been there, but I don't think that that's impacted them at all.
Kind of same line of question, but on Keontae, you've always been really communicative with him off the court, and I'm curious kind of how that relationship with him and Austin said his leadership has kind of developed this summer. Going into year 3 for him, how have you seen that part of his personality grow since he was a rookie day one?
Yeah, I think he's first and foremost, he's just growing up in general. I mean, he's now 21, which is still pretty crazy to think about, that we have all known him since he was 19 years old. I think he's more comfortable with who he is. I think he's more comfortable with the organization. I think he's more comfortable with me. I think there's a lot of factors that go into someone settling into their environment. He's done a really good job of addressing that piece. He and I talk all the time. Those conversations aren't always necessarily fun. But, like I said at Media Day, I do believe that a big part of my responsibility is to try to help develop them as young men, not just as basketball players. And that's not just me, that's our staff, that's our organization, and trying to help them kind of in this phase of their life. And I think Keontae's maturing in a great way. But I think comfort for him is probably one of the biggest reasons. I think there's a little bit more of a depth of relationship with everybody here, including me, which allows him to be himself a little bit more. I mean, you see it even with like Walt and Ace. They're both amazing young men with great character, but they're new and they don't know everybody that well. And so they're a little bit tentative from a relationship standpoint, which I think makes total sense. But I'm really proud of Keontae. Like he's made it a priority. We've talked a lot about it's not just what you do, it's how you do it. And I think he's taken a lot of pride in how he does it.
Ace was very excited, enthusiastic at Media Day with us. Just curious how you've seen that kind of translate on the court.
Yeah, I mean, we're not fishing out there, so we can't solve that for him. But he's just such a fun kid. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. He has a big smile. He's really energetic. He and I have talked a little bit about sometimes I don't think people recognize how long the process is from the end of a college season to opening day of training camp and all of the things that go on in between, all of the uncertainty. I've got to go through the draft process. I've got to go through, okay, now I get drafted. Now I have to do summer league, and it's uncomfortable and moving and all those things. Like, it's a long time until the first official day. And he was just so excited to finally go play and be a part of the team and kind of get it going. I think in those moments, most of the players are just, they want to start the next chapter. Like, let's just get to that part. So his energy has definitely been felt. I mean, he's made as many energy plays at practice as anybody the first 2 days. Crashing, couple of tip dunks, offensive rebounds, deflections defensively. He's flying around. But his attitude and personality is something that I'm excited for our fans to see on the court because it's so authentic. He is a, really fun, energetic, competitive 19-year-old. And he's comfortable with what he doesn't know. He's not afraid to ask questions to myself, the staff, the veteran players. Like, he asks a lot of questions while he's out there. I think he's approached camp in a really great way. He's not trying to do too much.
Obviously, you have your assistant coaches out there who work with specific players, but in training camp, what are you looking for from your perspective as a whole? And then how do you go address that with, hey, I know his shot looks kind of weird here. How do you navigate going about that?
Yeah, it's hard, first and foremost. Like, these practices, I have to think about it in chunks of time. Like, what would be a successful first 5 days? Because we can't do it all the first day. Like, I have a list on my desk and the assistants are always kind of adding things to it, and after the second practice today, we're going to go in there and you're going to feel like, oh my gosh, we have 40 things that we have to do. And there's team stuff, and then, like you said, there's individual things like, I need to talk to Ace about that. I want to talk to Bryce about this. And you just try to chip away at it every day. I think the assistants, the best thing that they do is they all have things that they are watching in particular, and so they can kind of focus on micro things, because I'm trying to focus on the big picture during camp of how the gym feels, how is the team approaching what they're doing, the overall competitiveness, and more macro concepts on both sides of the ball. The assistants are the ones who can get in the weeds on technique and how this pin down was guarded or how we executed that element of our offense. And so they keep me accountable to those things. And right now there's a lot of filtration going on. We have to meet a lot to talk about, okay, what are we going to do tomorrow? And the process of what we're going to do tomorrow starts as soon as I leave this room, and this is what we've done the first 2 days. These are the things that are showing themselves as they're maybe ahead of schedule. These are the things we think are behind schedule. But that's why you have a staff. In no way am I doing this on my own, and they bring 2 or 3 things to me every day where I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, here's 8 clips of it. Because I was watching something else in the moment. So it's a hard one to feel comfortable because there's always things you haven't done. So right now it's really just about what would I like to have done by the first preseason game, and then after those 2 road games, we'll have more film playing in somebody else, and then it's like, okay, what do we want this next 5 days to look like? So we just try to break it up in chunks of time. If I start thinking about the whole list, like I know myself, I'll start to panic a little bit.
Do you feel like you've gotten more into that rhythm now, a couple of years being a head coach? You kind of know, okay, when I enter training camp, this is how I want to play.
Yeah, there's definitely, we talked about Keontae feeling more comfortable. Like, I feel more comfortable in myself in this role and what's coming. I'm definitely more in a routine of how I want to do the meetings, how I want to receive information. Like, I need to know where it's coming from and who on the staff I want to ask about certain things. And I definitely am calmer on the inside than I was my first couple of years in terms of not feeling stressed that, oh my gosh, we haven't put this in or put that in yet. because there's always things that you want to do. It's just hard to knock them all out while also playing and conditioning and teaching terminology and all those things.
Saw the team go to bicycles, track, other places off gym site. How have you seen that reflected in the first 2 days of camp?
Yeah, we have talked about the ability to, like a lot of people talk about, the ability to do hard things. And we want to try to develop great human beings. We also want to try to develop great athletes, not just great basketball players. And I think it's about some resilience to go do things that maybe aren't perfectly sport specific, but still can impact your sport. You're still getting conditioning, but we're doing it on a football field. I think it also is a way to have our team move into the community in different ways, to not just be in this building behind closed doors. I mean, when we were in the football stadium, there were a ton of people from University of Utah that were there, some working, some watching. It's nice for our players to be out in the community in different ways. It's also, this is kind of trite, but it's fun. It's fun for them. They do the whole summer here, one day every 2 weeks. Hey, we're going to go to the football field and do conditioning there. It's a good change of scenery for them, especially because we know the long road of a season. We definitely don't want them showing up the first day of camp and they're already tired of this building.
Lowry's wrist injury, is it just a day-to-day thing? Or do you
Yeah, it's more maintenance. I'm lucky that I got to see this in San Antonio a bunch when guys would play in Eurobasket. Like, they just competed really hard for a month and laid it all on the line. It's nothing that we're concerned about, but it's just some bumps and bruises that we want to manage in this moment as he's coming off of that. But there's nothing to be concerned about at all.
I know we talked a lot about Keontae kind of stepping into this leadership role, but I know you've also stressed the importance of communication and being more vocal. Is there anyone else that's kind of surprised you as they step into the leadership side of things?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Love doesn't surprise me, but he has definitely been a massive voice for us the first 2 days. I think his presence, his experience is something that I don't take for granted. He has a great way of communicating with the young players. He and Kyle Anderson and Nurk, the three of them, for being new to our group, have found great ways of immediately making their presence felt. The way they use their voice, I don't think they make the young players feel stupid for making a mistake when they communicate to them. Like, I think they have a really tactful way of doing it. So I'd give those three all a lot of credit for how they've immediately moved into those roles. As far as the young players, it's been so fun to have Taylor's personality back in the mix. Watching him communicate and hearing his voice during play. Last year, once he started traveling with us, he had a presence in the locker room and on the bus and the plane. But when you're not playing, it's very different. So I think it's been great to see him back in the fold. He's helped us a lot already in camp.